a change with our table, so it's good to see y'all in a different way.
Yeah.
All right, Tim, I see you back there. Can you provide our invocation, please?
Our Father, for this food, for this time that we share together, and for your presence with us, we give you thanks. We give you thanks for just the wonderful meal that we're enjoying, for the rain that we need. We give you thanks for the fellowship that brings us all together. We pray your blessings upon this time, and pray your blessings upon our speaker. It's in your name we pray.
Thank you, Tim. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. It's so good to see all of you guys here today after it felt like we were going to be in Noah's Ark or something. We had so much rain, and even last night. So it's nice that we have a little bit of a dry spell for us to come to Rotary today. Do we have any visiting Rotarians or guests with us today? And I know we do. Jim?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce a prospective member, my daughter, Mary Beth Kennedy.
So glad you're here, Mary Beth.
I've got one, Jim Coleman, on the corner. Jim,
Big Jim.
currently county auditor, and served for a long time as member of county council. My boss was chairman of county council about 10 years ago, and he's also on board with the Savannah COG. We'll talk about that.
Wonderful. Well, welcome, Jim. Yeah, Alan has a guest, yeah.
I've got my sister, Nolan Burns.
All right, welcome, Nolan. Glad to have you. Yeah, and then we have a special guest, Kimberly Kitchens, as you all know, our assistant governor.
And I'm not with you today, the incoming Assistant Governor, Christy Pomeroy.
Welcome, Christy.
She'll be working with Kathy at Pets and Free Pets, preparing for her club year next year.
So we're going to be sad, I'm going to be sad that Kimberly is not our assistant governor anymore, but Christy is going to be fantastic. I can tell already, and I know Kathy will enjoy working with you. So welcome, and Kimberly, I still hope you come to visit our club as often as you can. So, all right, any other guests? We have a lot of people here today, so happy to see all of your faces. I think Matt wants to say something.
I'm glad to see Dr. Brown back.
Yes, absolutely. It's good to see you. Glad to have you back. Okay. For Happy Bucks, we're just going to pass the bucket around. Matt, I think, looked very eager to pass that around, so we won't say what we're happy about, but if you have your dollar, just put in there. All right, so for announcements today, does anyone have any announcements before I share a few? Any announcements? Okay. Backpack tomorrow. And Rotary, when is the next Rotary Readers? Okay. All right, so backpacks, if anyone can join tomorrow at 9:15. Okay, so maybe 9-ish. Okay, Amber?
I just want to say, we missed the outing in the Big Air. We had a really good time. So the food was delicious. It was very entertaining watching some of us throw axes. So it was just a good time, and it was nice to get outside of these four walls and get to know each other in a different way. So I think we would love to do that again sometime. So we would encourage you to come and hang out with us.
Yeah, I echo that, Amber. That's very true. We had a great time. We had a good turnout. But if you missed it, we would love to have you guys at the next one. And it's true, Angela Marlette is the queen of axe throwing. So if you ever need lessons, go to Angela. She taught me, and I was a hopeless cause, as some of you have witnessed. So,
There's video footage if you'd like to see that.
that needs to be. I think Amber's gonna bribe me with
I'll
that.
hook it up to the TV later.
What does this do?
Good in the world. Thank you, Matt. Okay, so yes, Big Air was a big hit, so we hope that you guys will join us on our next social meeting and I think that'll be in a couple months. The next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is membership. So we are always wanting our club to grow and thrive and be amazing because all of you guys are so amazing. We want to invite other people who are like you guys, who care about the community, to be a part of our club. And so some of the board and I talked to Albert Blackman, who is in charge of membership for Rotary in our district, and so he suggested that we do an event called Discover Rotary. So just like you can imagine, it's going to talk about what we do as a club, it's going to talk about what Rotary is, what it's all about, and we're going to do it on April 3rd. Patty has graciously let us take her program for that day, and so we're going to have it at our regular meeting. So we'll be talking about that in the weeks ahead, but we want all of us to be thinking about people who might be a good fit for our club, someone who might really enjoy the camaraderie, the volunteer opportunities, and all of that, the social aspect. There's so many good things about Rotary. So as you're just going about your week, if you want to just like make a mental note when you come across someone who might be a good fit to join our club. You can invite them to the event on April 3rd. So we'll be talking about that a little bit more in the weeks ahead, but just so it's on y'all's radar, I wanted to let you guys know. RLI, Kathy and I are going on Saturday to the Rotary Leadership Institute, so I'm very excited about that. I'm going to be graduating. Kathy's going to be joining the first session, so very excited to graduate and have that under my belt. And it's been very, very helpful. All right, any other announcements before we move on? All right, then I will invite Ernie to come on up and introduce his guest.
Good afternoon. It is good to see Dr. Brown back. I know he's had health issues, and Dr. Short, I think, had some health issues too, so Robert, I'm glad you're doing better. And, I talked to Carol about that, so it's good to have you with us. I'm pleased to introduce today Rick Green. Rick is the Government Services Director of the Savannah Council of Governments located in Greenwood, but they've been serving Orange County for 50 years now, so most of you know who they are. King Dixon has been to the club for a long time, was an advocate for Savannah. Jim Coleman's been a member for a long time too. Rick's a graduate of Wofford College, and we're proud to have a terrier down here in Blue Hose Land, but he also has a Master's of Planning at Clemson University. He's been employed at Savannah since 1994, and his duties include planning and assisting local governments with various projects. The COG over the years has developed a real close relationship with the Department of Transportation out of Columbia. And Rick will talk today, I think, about some trends that we see over here with some accident information, and also talk about a few projects that may be on the horizon as well. So please welcome Rick Green.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to come and present and talk about a topic that's overall not very happy or very good to talk about, but maybe we can present some solutions and maybe turn some trends around that we've seen happening in road accidents coming up in the past anyway. What I'm going to talk about is a mouthful. It's called the Upper Savannah Council of Governments Roadway Departure Safety Implementation Plan. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about roadway departure and the type of vehicle accident that is, and how we're working towards trying to address those and make those changes. All right, this is our Upper Savannah service area, just in case some of you didn't realize it in the purple over there. We're Abbeville, Edgefield, Greenwood, Lawrence, McCormick, and Saluda counties, and all the local governments in those counties. Those are the ones that I work with for a variety of many different issues. But for the issue specifically of roadway departure, South Carolina has a big problem with traffic accidents overall, and the number of traffic accidents and the number of fatalities in particular too as well. So the numbers are high in the state. The Federal Highway Administration identified South Carolina as a state that needs some extra help. So they offered, when we went to a big DOT statewide meeting, are there any topics that you would want to look at, any studies that you would want to do? So I raised my hand and said, let's talk about roadway departure accidents. Are those the kind of things that we need to look at? Is there a way to address the problem? It seems to be a big issue in my service area that I work with. So let's look at it and see what we can do. So Federal Highways agreed to come in and help with that. and they hired a consultant to come in as well to do some work with that. So we were able to work with them and come up with this plan. The definition of roadway departure is here from the federal highway. Let me read it directly for you. It's a crash which occurs after a vehicle crosses the edge line or the center line, or otherwise leaves the traveled way. That is the federal highway's definition of a roadway departure crash. This is a big number, I think, and it's a very sobering number to look at, but the average number of fatalities for the years of the study that we looked at between 2017 and 2021, those are the most complete data numbers that we looked at. But we're talking nationally, between 37,000 40,000 people a year die in car accidents nationally. That's a big, scary number, I think. And anything that we can do to work towards making that number lower is something we certainly should be doing. Nationally, again, we're looking at the different types of accidents. Roadway departure, what I just described to you, is the green area. 45% of accidents nationally are some aspect of a roadway departure type accident. And part of this other area too, is this other 11% as well, would be roadway departure plus another aspect. When public safety officers will code what happens with an accident, sometimes they'll do one aspect only, sometimes they'll do several aspects only. So that's how you can have several different categories there. We saw the national numbers. Now let's look at the numbers for the state and for the region. Statewide, we have over 1,000 people that die in traffic accidents in South Carolina every year. These numbers are 2017 through 2021, so keep that in mind as I'm sharing this. The past couple of years, there's been a trend downward, which has been very good, but these are some very high numbers and very, again, sobering numbers to think about when you look at these number of people are dying on our roads every year. Of the statewide numbers for roadway departure, specifically those type of accidents, 55.5% of the statewide accidents and fatalities are roadway departure related. For our region, our Upper Savannah COG region, that number is 67.2%. So you're looking at the national numbers where we're looking at around 45%, state numbers are around 55%, not good either way. And then we're going to focus on our little neck of the woods here, and we see that we have a particularly bad problem with roadway departure fatalities in our region. And these are the numbers that are showing you the 67.2% for our Upper Savannah COG region. And this is county by county. Don't know if you can see those numbers directly, but it shows the type of roadway departure accidents by county and by year. You see those categories that's headed with KAB, those are traffic engineer codes. KAB are accidents where someone has died or someone has a serious injury. So those are the numbers that are floated around there. Greenwood and Lawrence County, the region that I work with, are typically the higher one. Lawrence, you would think so because it has one of the higher populations, either the highest or the next to the highest in our region. But also the two interstates are coming through, so you've got a lot of traffic moving through and around Lawrence County. This may be a little too small for you to read, but these are the types of things that come in with that cause the focus areas for the crash types. Some of these things are a little bit surprising to me, but this is what the numbers that came up with. Head-on collisions are a little bit over 20%. You also have, when the roadway departure accident happens, striking of a tree. Once somebody leaves the road, strikes a tree, that's another type of accident. Light conditions, I thought more nighttime, but it's pretty much even, 50-50 roughly, for the type of, when the fatality happens between daytime and nighttime. Road surface conditions, again, I thought roads like today, when they're wet, would be more dangerous. Happens more in dry conditions as well. DUI is a big factor in our region and around the state. Impaired driving, from the driver that causes some type of roadway departure and ultimately fatality or serious injury. Speeding is a big problem. Speeding is a factor in most of those type of accidents. So something that could be done very easily is something that, as we all go out and think about as we're going down the road, reducing that speed, making sure that we're not holding our phones or distracted, and certainly making sure that you're not impaired. And wearing a seatbelt. That's a factor. The fatalities are about a third of the cases in roadway departure. They were not wearing a seatbelt. This is just an overview of the number of roads that we have in the region. You can see those in the green areas there. We were able to get traffic crash data, roadway and traffic volume data from SCDOT. SCDOT was a partner in all of this. Another thing to keep in mind as we look at this, SCDOT owns and maintains most of the roadways in South Carolina. So as we're looking at solutions, SCDOT has to be at the table. I can't go out and just start doing things on one of their roads. There are county maintained roads, there are city maintained roads, but the big bulk of everything is those SCDOT. So they were involved, and they are helping us to complete this plan and implement this plan. We got a lot of curve data from those sources. This was particularly from the University of Wisconsin that was able to give curve data and the number of curves, which I didn't realize was something that would be measured or kept, but that was available to us. And also elevation data. Not so much a problem in our area. Certain parts it would be, but not everywhere. But other parts of the country, that may be a big factor. So those are the types of data sources that we were able to draw from. And this is just an image of Lawrence County in particular, the plan map that came out of that. Behind this map, there's GIS data, digital data, that you would be able to take and zoom in specifically to roads. When you look at a paper map like that, you're not sure what roads, what name, you're not sure the different areas and what you want to look at. With the GIS data backing this up, you can go in specifically and look at particular areas and where those roadway departments for their area. But as far as we know, this is the first time that it's been done for a regional council of governments district. All right, this is some of the countermeasures, some of the things that we would be looking at to try to address roadway departure, try to prevent it from happening. Roadway departure prevention aligns with the federal highways, guidelines and approaches. There's lots of different barriers and types of things that we're going to look at. I'm just going to quickly roll through these and see what we can do working with DOT to try to make these safety issues happen. These are the three categories that we will be looking at. First priority in the countermeasure is to keep that vehicle on the road. Second would be reduce the potential for accidents. And third, if there is going to be an accident, reduce the severity or the type of accident. So those are the three overall categories we're looking at. First countermeasure, keeping those vehicles on the road. You see curb signing, you see pavement markings, delineators, which are like markers that light up and prevent people from going off the road, or at least direct them to stay on the road. Friction treatments, that's sort of, the roadway has sort of a different feel to it. It makes a noise when your tires go across it. It kind of wakes you up a little bit. It says something's different here, so I need to slow down. That's the theory anyway. And also the rumble strips that we talked about. Curve signing, there is a science to it. There's a type of sign, and this is just some of the, you can't probably read these details, but the size of the curve, the speed going through the curve, all those issues need to be looked at as you're putting up curve signs, and what type of curve signs would be best in specific situations. So some of the enhancements potentially for this type of enhancement or countermeasure, bigger signs, doubling up on signs, those fluorescent yellow sheeting, the colors that go on the legs of the sign, overhead lights, the wigwag style flashers that go back and forth on signs, reflecting posts. Some of those are things that would be looked at as we're going around curves to keep the cars on the road, make the drivers aware that a curve is coming up. And that's some pictures or some examples of those type of things. Pavement markings, one of the most cost-effective and best ways to reduce accidents. And this is from Federal Highways, but it seems awfully simple to me. But the standard for the white strip on the side of the road is 4 inches. Federal Highway says if that is increased to 6 inches, that makes a wider surface area, more of a reflection, and that reduced the type of accidents when that's been put on roads. That's just a very simple thing, a very cost-effective thing that our local governments and DOT can do as they're improving the roads. And this is something to think about. We can't just go in and do all this at once. We're looking at the long game here. As we're improving the roads, as we're making improvements and changing the roads, trying to address some of these countermeasures so that they can improve the safety of the roads. So those wider 4 inches up to 6 inches, those are a very cost-effective way to reduce roadway departure accidents. Delineators, that's the little thing in the center. It's looks like an index card on the picture on the left, but it's a reflector. When your light's hit it, it's very bright. It shows you that there's a curve coming up, a change coming up. And then in the picture on the right, you see those posts. You've seen those in certain areas as well. They're very reflective. They shine. The ones on the right, when your light hits it, it looks sort of like a diamond type of color. It's a very shimmery type of look to it. Friction treatments, this is something that you put on the asphalt of the road to show that this is a different area. It's something to wake you up as a driver, to let you know that something's different up ahead. This is a change in the roadway and I need to be aware of it. So the idea is that once you start with that friction, you hear the sound in the car, you feel your tires pulling a little bit, that it's going to slow you down as you're going through this type of a curve. This picture, I don't know if you can see it very well, but there is the road in one way bends off to the right side, but there's also another road that goes straight across. And the line of the utilities goes straight across too. So if you aren't paying attention as you're going down this road, it looks like you've moved straight across instead of bearing off to the right of the road. So this is just a way to kind of keep the driver aware, keep the driver involved in the road, and make sure that they follow that treatment around and they know that something is happening up ahead. Rumble strips, mentioned those a little earlier. That's the type of thing that you see here. And the state has been doing a lot of work with those rumble strips on the side. Also, in certain cases, the rumble strip can go in the center. It just makes a noise as you go to it. If your car veers a little bit, you hear that rumble, you know that you need to get back over. Very cost-effective way, very good way to reduce those type of accidents, those rumbles. Motorcyclists and bicyclists do not like rumble strips because of when they ride over them, they throw them off. So that's something to consider there. Also, you wouldn't want to put a rumble strips in a highly residential area because they do make noise. Every car that goes over them is going to make a noise. So there is something here in the top right-hand picture called a mumble strip, which is the similar type activity that makes the noise within the car, but it's less of a noise. So that's the mumble strip as opposed to the rumble strip. The second idea here is to reduce the number of the potential for crashes. Shoulders. Having those paved shoulders as a way, if you go off the road, you have some space there to recover and get back on the road. Studies have shown that any type of expanse of a shoulder there is going to allow a car to recover and get back on the road and make sure that they don't completely go off the road into the side of the grassy area there. It can be widened in corridors, and it can be widened in critical locations, but any widening of that shoulder helps with safety. The edge of the road, the safety edge, the end of the pavement where it just drops off completely. If your wheel goes off of it and it drops off that hard angle, your car is going to jerk and fight you a little bit. You're going to have a tendency to pull back. One feature here is to smooth that transition, make it more of an angle so that the car is not a hard drop off. If your tire goes off, it's more of an easy transition and you can pull it back on. You're going to know that the car is off the road, but you're not going to have to fight to get control back of the car. as something of a hard angle would be. And the center line buffer, this will be between the middle lanes there. This will be a feature of something like the rumble strips, where you would have a line down the middle of it, something in the middle of the road that's going to wake you up. If you hit that, you're going to notice that you're not in your lane anymore. And again, these are the type of things when you're doing regular road maintenance, resurfacing, just include these type of things, what the DOT does, in their regular maintenance type activities. The clears are the areas around the sides of the roadway. This is a picture, it looks to me like this picture is probably from the Pacific Northwest with that tree sitting right there. And you can see that it looks like it had some damage to that tree. But I know there are trees practically sitting on the roadway in Orange County as well. Right across from Presbyterian Home, I know there's a couple of trees that are sitting just about that close to the roadway. So it's something to think about. Higher speed locations, the wider that clear space can be, that allows a person, if they do run off the road, to get back off the road, on the road and not hit something. Outside of the curve areas is where this is most helpful, and also in the higher traffic volume areas, this will be helpful. People running off the road, gives them an opportunity to correct themselves, stop themselves without hitting something, whether it be a tree, a sign, a building, something on the side of the road. And traversable slopes, just an easy slope off the road that allows you to kind of, if you do happen to go off the road, you're not going to have a sudden fall off either the asphalt or the gravel area or into the grassy area. An easy transition into a safer area so that you can sort of get yourself back together and pull back on the road and not be in a bad accident there. And this type of thing is with some of these others, it's specific to the location. It works better in some areas than in others, and it just has to be evaluated and seen what happens best. Finally, there's the way to minimize severity would be like breakaway devices, and this has to be used very carefully because some improperly used of breakaway devices can be negative as well. But barriers, stopping a car that's going to head off the road, something kind of guiding the car back into the road, something that would be more physical, but it wouldn't be necessarily something that would destroy the car if it hit them at a certain break. So those are the types of things that we would be looking at to implement through the departure plan. Costs are always a factor, and this may be too small for you to read, but looking at all these features, if we did them all at once over a 5-year period, you'd be looking at something like $28 million. So that's a big number. But as you do things, and there are certain things that are more impactful than others, those rumble strips, very low cost, very effective. Fixing the side of the edge of the road so that it's not a sharp drop off and it's more of an angled transition. All those type of things, we can pick through this, pick things that work best in a particular situation, pick the things that we have the money for as we're going through and doing our road improvements, and encouraging DOT to try to take this format and use it as they're working through all the road improvements in our region as they make improvements.
Is this cost just for your area?
Just for our area. So as I said, we think this is the first time that this type of plan has been done for a council of governments region. We're hoping that this can be used and transferred to other parts of the state, other councils of governments. There are 10 total councils of governments around the state of South Carolina, and some of them are interested and have been talking to me about wanting to do this as well. So we're hoping that this can be used, transferred to other parts of the state, used by other places around the country, even if there's other rural areas around the nation that have an issue or a need to address those roadway departure type accidents as they're making their road improvements. But again, we have to work with SCDOT. That's our goal. And as I said, we're just trying to not implement this on day one. We're trying to convince them, and they are understanding of this, and they're working with us, that these type of safety changes need to be made because it has the great potential to save some lives. And those factors are very important in making the just regular road maintenance and improving roads. Cars nowadays have a lot of safety features to them. As you go off the lanes, you know, your car will beep at you if you've got a newer car. I think those are things that are going to help us reduce those roadway departure numbers, but these factors physically changing the roadway are also important to make roads safer, particularly in rural areas, and particularly in areas like ours, where we seem to have a particularly large number of roadway departure type fatalities. So I've got some more stuff to talk about with construction and upcoming projects, but does anybody have any questions, particularly about roadway departure? Yes, sir.
I've noticed that in the center area of the interstate, that they're coming through replacing some of the cable structures with a solid structure. Is that a coming thing?
That seems to be something that's going to hold people or vehicles back more, particularly on the interstate. You've got big vehicles like semis moving at big speeds, so there needs to be more of a strengthening post in there to make that stop. But yeah, I've seen that as well.
Cables just didn't look like they could hold back a big semi-truck.
Yeah, I think the cables were a quick response to a problem which seemed to be happening at the time, and as we're looking at seeing what's happening over time with those, more of a solid structure is something that we need to be done there. Yes, sir.
Could you comment on what percentage involves accidents as a result of drugs and alcohol?
Yes.
When I was studying at Emory University, they have a research center back there that was listed many decades ago. And they said that one cigarette of marijuana is 20 wrapper cigarettes, and it's bad for the lung. And also, they found out alcohol kills brain cells. I watched politicians last night. They said that they don't get a warning on alcohol. Seven different type of cancers. What percentage of that of the accidents involve alcohol and drugs?
They didn't break out alcohol and drugs, they just had impairment as the factor there, but it was about 30% of the roadway fatalities have some kind of DUI is the bigger picture thing. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yes, sir.
Has the recent change of government in Washington made any difference in how you do business?
Not yet. Everything that we have is sort of in place and typical as far as what we do. We don't do anything that's not responsive to the needs of the local government. So everything that we have has not been touched as of yet. But it's certainly potential for that.
Are you aware of any plans to widen Highway 14?
Not to widen Highway 14, but I'm going to show you about the intersection there of 14 and 101, some improvements that are going to happen, but not a widening of Highway 14.
The high percentages that you noted early on in the presentation, you know, from national to state to then upper Savannah region, do you feel like some of that's potentially just because of how rural we are and the opportunity for us to get off of, you know, the roadway in those type of situations?
I think all that plays a factor in it. You have people who are driving longer distances to get to work, longer distances just to go, you know, to different types of health facilities or something. So more people are on the road for longer distances in rural areas. So that probably all is a factor in that type of thing. Yes, ma'am.
These fewer white headlights blind me, and I know a lot of cars have automatic dimmers now. But it seems like it doesn't dim fast enough.
It doesn't, yeah.
And we drive to Atlanta a lot, and they put a really high barrier wall there in the line between the two lanes, or four lanes, I guess. But that really does help to have that line barrier for the lights. But are you seeing any difference in the white lights helping or hurting as far as traffic accidents?
I don't think we've seen any specific studies on the color of the light or the brightness of the light, but lights on an intersection do help. Now, the oncoming lights from another car that's another factor, and that's something that definitely needs to be worked on more with the car makers, manufacturers, than with anything, with the, not necessarily the physical look of the road. But yeah, it's, that's definitely a challenge. I know my car, it doesn't reduce that high beam as fast as I would like it to sometimes. And sometimes it never does. So I'm not sure exactly what the science is and how they decided that, but that is something that needs to be looked at with car manufacturers for certain. Okay. Let's zoom on over to construction, upcoming construction things here. We talked about the Highway 14 and 101 interchange. That is upcoming to be improved up in the town of Grayport. The traffic study has been completed. DOT is doing the preliminary design right now. What they have is right-of-way acquisition starting in the fall of 2026, and then construction starting in the fall of 2027. I know that seems like a very long time. It is a very long time, and I don't understand why it takes that long to do it, but that's what DOT's schedule is as of right now. They are estimating about $3.2 million to make improvements to that intersection. I imagine it's going to be probably more, if not double that, by the time the construction actually starts happening. And there is money available. DOT allocates money to be spent. The DOT has the money and they keep the money, but they allocate money to be spent in every region. Our upper Savannah COG region is allocated $9 million a year for a 6-county region, so that's not a lot of money, but that money can be banked, and we can take into account that there are going to be potentially some cost increases in that. So all that is hopefully being taken care of, unless the costs started going into the triple range. Then we're going to have to rethink how we're looking at that. But that's the sort of the plan from DOT, and I'll show you a picture here of what the intersection would look like. This is another DOT picture. I would have done it with the north going up and down, but they did it with Highway 14 from right to left across the middle of the screen. I hope you can see that. If not, you can come up and look at it if you need to see it afterwards too. But Highway 14 goes across the middle. The main part of the downtown core there of Grayport is at the bottom center, and then Highway 14 is over here on the right. Highway 101 is over here on the right, going directly up and down. What DOT is proposing, and the new Family Dollar, potential new Family Dollar building there is going to go on the upper right-hand side. What DOT is proposing is that first, coming from Lawrence, that first intersection there where you can turn left and go across the railroad tracks and go towards the little business district, they're proposing closing that entryway. That's the red area that you see over on the right-hand side. Closing that entryway, expanding the road up to make 2 one-ways. The next entrance up, which is Central Avenue, is the way that you would go towards the downtown business district. Rock Avenue, the next one up, would get a signal, and that's how you would go out from the Central Business District. So those are the improvements that DOT is proposing to make in the Grayport area. There's a lot of factors that they've had to look at here. The railway is right there, businesses, houses right there. Not a lot of room to work with for this improvement, but this is what they're improving and how they see as addressing the needs. And of course, there will be widening and turn lanes as part of this. But another signal, closing the access on that southern part of the town of Grayport, and making those 2 more northern entrances there one-way each. So that's sort of what they're thinking and how they're going through this. Yes, sir.
So 101 runs down 14 blocks.
I'm sorry, did you?
101 comes across where they're going to close, so it's going to just go down.
Yeah.
Wasn't this one of the major projects in the region DOT agreed to?
This is it. Yeah.
This is the traffic light Grayport. I think what the first one to come to is trying to make that right turn over the interstate. It's hard. Of course, it's kind of leaves on that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the idea. That's what's coming up there. And as far as beyond The Great Court intersection. As of right now, these are upcoming projects, intersections that we're looking at for improvements. By the time we get to the point of doing any type of improvements on these intersections, this could change because DOT is awfully slow at what they're doing, but they're also making us do updates to this regularly. So by the time, as of right now, this is it, but by the time this actually happens, it could be changed. It could be different ones or new ones there. But 221 Lisbon Road, the intersection of 49 and 308, 76 Wilson Town, 14 Owens Parkway, and 14 in Durbin Road, which is just outside or barely in the town of Fountain Inn. And that one, that very last one, is part of the Greenville metropolitan area. It would be nice if they would come in and fix that intersection on their own, but it's not on their plans. But it shows up as a big need in our region. That's why it's on our plans. So those are the intersections at the moment, but again, that could change as time goes by. Any other questions?
Rick, you can tell them, you can go on DOT website, look up whatever projects that are on in the works.
Yeah, it's called a project viewer on the DOT website. You go in, zoom to your project and click on it, and they will give you details about what's happening. Another thing that I use, and probably not everybody would use it, but Street Finder. You can go in, select Lawrence County, Town of Great Court, and put in the name of the street, and you'll find out if that's a state maintained road, a town maintained road, a county maintained road. I use that a good bit. Maybe not everybody would, but it is helpful in certain instances. Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question. You've got this list of projects that are upcoming. You've got known traffic fatalities, and I'm sure you know where those are located. So is it your intent to only make changes as these types of projects come up, or do you plan to try to go through this process and focus on maybe where the heavy fatalities are or accidents and make changes to those areas?
Yeah.
Like how will you tackle the whole thing moving
The
forward?
whole big picture. If it was as simple as a spot on the road, in a county, an intersection, that would be easy to fix. But when you look at the map and look at the number of fatalities and the location of fatalities, they're scattered. They're very different reasons for fatalities. And if there was one spot, we could fix that easily and move on. So what DOT does, they have a lot of different pots of money. They have a particular pot of money addressing safety, rural safety in particular. So the roadway departure that I talked about in the beginning, that will be part of the safety, ongoing safety pot of money that DOT has. They also address traffic incidents with a number of deaths as well. That would be a separate pot of money for them. So these things are all happening all at once. The focus is going to be safety, the number of accidents, the number of fatalities, and trying to address those as much as possible with the different funding sources that are available. So it's kind of everything happening concurrently. Nothing is being overlooked as far as the information and the data that we're looking at. And if another intersection pops up and starts having more type of accidents, that would certainly push it up on this ranking list and cause a change in that list. Again, we're trying to work with DOT and trying to encourage them to address safety as much as possible with the limited amount of money that we have available to our region and with the limited resources that they have statewide.
You know, some of this money is coming from the feds on the intersection, say.
Yeah.
That's a federal
And that's why I thought it was a good thing for our region to have this in place, because if that money comes down from different resources, we're able to say, this is a plan, this is the intersections we're going to look at, we're ready to go, let's do this one.
Can it be more about maybe the particular highway than the intersection? I know I don't drive it a lot, but I just know from feedback and others who are here that drive it a lot, and or just hearing people comment, 14's an issue. You know, the question about, hey, is it going to be 4-lane or something? If you know that there's problems there and people not obeying the laws and those different things that make it even more of a safety hazard, can that impact the trajectory of, hey, is there something that can be presented to make that happen, or?
Yeah, I think the volume of traffic that's happening on the size of the road, that certainly factors that DOT looks at. The type of preventative actions that can be taken, more police presence, more signage, all those type of things are things that they certainly do look at. The widening doesn't necessarily solve fatality issues. It does help move traffic and move people through and increase the number of people moving through and vehicles moving through, but it doesn't necessarily long-term solve those fatality issues. And talking about the cost of widening versus the cost of doing an intersection is a big factor too. Now, or the last I heard, and this is probably out of date by now, but widening a 2-lane road to a 4-lane road, you're looking at about $12 million a mile. And you remember back to our region is allocated $9 million a year. So we couldn't even widen a mile of road per year based on the amount of money that DOT allocates for this region. So we're looking at working with intersections, working with safety improvements, trying to make things work as much as possible outside of the issue of widening and those high costs that are associated with that.
Why does that area have such a increase in accidents?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know, but there's certainly more accidents involved in the DUI. Yeah, and education is a factor in that and helping do that, but that, I don't know, that's something a little bit beyond what DOT does in their regular work, but yeah, DUI is a factor, and driving while impaired is a factor. Those reasons are as varied as those individual people that get in those cars and try to choose to drive when they are impaired. I don't think there's any one particular reason. They could, very much so, and have done that. Okay. All right, thank you all.